real economy. We're in Germany, where in just a few days, the country will elect a new parliament and the world will be watching. We'll take a look at some of the economic issues going into these elections and, of course, Germany's key position within the Euro system. On the show today, we'll talk to Jim Schnapp, co-CEO of SAP, one of the largest IT companies in the world, about the German economic model. We'll also analyze the country's focus on exports, immigration, and what's often cited as a contributor to the German success story, but remains controversial: some of its labor policies. When we think of Germany today, booming exports and a rather large current account surplus come straight to mind. This is a country that has moved mountains to ensure its GDP growth and balance of payments. Sebastian Lebilsig takes a look at the impact of the Eurozone crisis and a global economic slowdown on this export-focused country, and whether it can truly pay heed to the calls for increasing its domestic demand and therefore imports.
The Audi factory in Ingolstadt in Bavaria, the largest in the world. There are 35,000 employees turning out more than 550,000 vehicles each year. A car leaves here every 30 seconds. It is a symbol of German success in foreign markets. BMW, Mercedes and Audi export 80% of their production. And despite the recession, sales have increased by 12% last year. The slowdown in Europe is largely offset by the spectacular growth in the United States and especially China.
We have a broad footprint that's America, China or Asia and Europe. The European slowdown, it affects us all, but at the same time, if you have a broad stand, you will be able to walk through a crisis like that.
Vehicles and car parts accounted for 18% of total exports in 2012. Behind these flattering figures are sound working practices. In this plant in Bavaria, every movement is designed and analysed. Flexible working is at the heart of the production process.
We have around 200 working time models. So it depends on your personal situation. When would you like to start? How long would you like to work? And how could you combine family life, working life or private life to each other?
And that has resulted in Audi, for the fourth consecutive year, being the leading brand where Germans dream of working. Ingolstadt is a German city with the lowest unemployment rate. Audi has signed an agreement for the numbers employed here to remain the same until 2018. Stability for the 68,000 employees of the group. It is IG Metall with whom the management group has to negotiate. With 2.4 million members, it is the largest union in Europe and represents, in particular, workers in the metal and plastics industry. It is a powerful voice in the automotive sector, which embodies the model of joint management.
Here in Germany, there's a standardized system. With us, there is one union in the company. In Italy, for example, that's not the case. There is not one union, but there are 2, 3, 4 unions, and everyone has different interests.
This time, union members are meeting in Berlin to discuss their plan of action for the months ahead. Leave, working time, pay. Here, everything is negotiated between representatives before being presented to company management. It is an exemplary principle of consensus. The result is German workers strike 10 times less than their French neighbours.
Joining us now is Jim Schnapp. He is co-CEO of SAP. It's one of the largest software companies in the world and it's also Germany's fourth largest company by market cap. Jim, in your opinion, what's been harder, the Eurozone crisis or the global economic slowdown on companies like yours?
For me, clearly the global slowdown. Because the Eurozone conversation was unfortunate and I think necessary, but it was a short-term problem. Whereas the slowdown in the economy globally is a much longer-term problem, one that requires strong leadership from businesses, where the financial situation in the euro was more political.
Is the thinking in German businesses changing in terms of economics here?
Well, I think you've seen Germany being a little bit the locomotive in Europe, even in through the crisis. And one reason for that has been a surplus, which I think is necessary. When you run a company, you need a surplus. The same is true in a country. And you need to be able to innovate and invest in areas that will drive growth from the future. And if you look at Germany, they've been able to be competitive, even in manufacturing. And I think that's one of the reasons that they stayed ahead of the game in Europe. If you look at the conversation around the euro, even Germany in particular, Merkel stood up for the euro and argued for the benefits even for Germany to be part of an open market that's much bigger than Germany alone. And I think this shows you how important it is that in these difficult situations that Europe stays together and that we foster an open market. Even a digital open market is one of my arguments in order for us to drive innovation growth for the future.
Well, on that note, let's talk about the crash course that we want to get you this time around. This is on balance of payments, a very, very key topic in this episode.
The balance of payments of a country is a statistical record of all transactions made between one particular country and all other countries during a specified period of time. Despite its name, the balance of payments is not intended to account for payments, but transactions. It is a balanced account, each transaction with a financial consideration, a change of assets or liabilities. For example, export or sale of securities by a country in return gives rise to an increase in liquid assets or decrease in their commitments as an advance payment previously obtained from non-resident banks. At the national level, the balance of payments is used to evaluate the commercial relationships with other countries and is therefore an essential element of accounting to calculate, for example, the GDP of a state.
We know the dole queues are getting longer across Europe, but here in Germany, they're actually shrinking with employment at a record. That's quite the turnaround from just a decade ago, when this country was dubbed the sick man of Europe. We take a closer look now at the instruments that have been attributed as key to the German jobs miracle.
28 years old, university educated, fluent in 3 languages and underpaid. The curriculum vitae of Adam Finis has led to this mini-job, €450 a month for 20 hours per week at this bar in Berlin.
Speaking 3 languages and having experience in the service industry, it was fairly easy to find this job. But I think for somebody coming to the country, this is most likely the easiest job they'll find is a mini job.
There are 7 million like Adam in Germany working in what is called a mini job. In this country, without any minimum wage, it is a good way to lower the cost of labour and unemployment. It is a contract only in name, as there are no guarantees for employees, who can be fired overnight, no insurance or any retirement rights. In return,